October.
We'll have to unless David shows up.
Chair report, there is none. Code enforcement officers report.
No, there's nothing.
Okay. Limited public forum. Do we know of anyone that's online that has any questions?
So far nothing.
I'll pass that one out. Unfinished business, there's none. New business, pre-application for a land use permit. Proposed 20-acre, 5-megawatt solar project located off the River Road on map 1, lot 3 and 5. Map 36, lot 5. The applicant is Amoresco Engineering by TRC Company.
I think it's Amoresco, is that right?
Amoresco.
It is Amoresco, okay. I stand corrected. You can smack me later. Alright, I had some stuff all pulled up to show you guys, and of course my computer restarted, so we'll try again.
How's it going, Rob? Can you hear all right?
He's talking, you just can't hear him.
I think you're on mute still, Rob.
Rob Jackson with Amoresco. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, Rob. So, we're looking at a 5-megawatt solar farm, for lack of a better term, and the location is right here next to this power line where it crosses the road. So we're looking right in here is where this is going to go. It's tax map 1, lot 3 and 5, and tax map 36, lot 5, I believe. And again, I had that all pulled up. I apologize. So here's tax map 1. So it's this lot 3 and lot 5, and sure now it wants to reopen. And tax map 36. That lot 5 right there. So, and then as you can see, that borders the road down here, and the power line is lot 6. So that all belongs to CMP. There's 21 abutters to this property. Some of them own multiple lots. I sent out abutter letters. Even though this was not a voting meeting, I wanted them to be aware and let them watch this and call in and ask questions if they had any. So far, all those letters sent out, and I've had 2 calls, and the only questions they had was they were just trying to understand better where it was located. Once I explained it to them, they were fine with it. So far, I haven't had any complaints from any neighbors or any concerns.
Did you say 21 abutters?
I sent out 21 letters, yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of them were duplicate, not duplicate. There would have been more, but a lot of them own multiple lots. So, I'll send those out again before we have the vote, just to be overly cautious. But I think it's a good sign for you guys that there's been very little concern. Yeah, I guess I'll turn it over to you guys. I've got your plan here if you want me to pull it up, or you guys can. You want me to pull it up?
Yeah, if you want to put it on the screen, it might be easier and bigger than what we've got here. Rob, can you see everybody okay, at least over where the board is?
I can't see the board, but I got a copy of the plan, so
He meant the planning board.
I should be fine. That view's good.
Okay. Do you want to give just a quick introduction of yourself and Amoresco before we dive into the project?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Tom. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you hosting the pre-application meeting. I wish I could be there to be there with you guys. The sustainability goals and, and save some money at the same time. We're proposing we anticipate that we'll be, paying a payment in lieu of taxes at some point. We see that, that there's some legislation in Maine that is, kind of moving forward, and later this summer we anticipate that something will be in effect and that we'll be required to pay pilot payment to the town. So we're anticipating that, we're budgeting that. We're trying to provide both economic and environmental benefits, for a property that's kind of had some limited use at this point, and try to limit the impacts to the environment and the local community at the same time. And TRC, we've been working with them to kind of limit the footprint and keep it to the best of our ability out of natural resource constraints and outside setbacks from property boundaries. So we can limit the development impacts as well. We have a interconnection service agreement currently with CMP that we've been working on for over a year, and this project is kind of unique in that we're not going to be subjected to a broader cluster study that a lot of other solar projects are going to be beholden to, and we expect our studies to be completed through ISO New England in the next couple months, which will give us the clear from an interconnection standpoint to do what we need to do to get things online from the utility perspective. We also have a lease agreement executed with AIM Recycling, and so here we are, kind of working on the permitting to kind of get this across the goal line, and hopefully we can go online later this year. That's our goal. So Tom, I'll turn it back over to you to kind of go over some of the design if you think that's the way we should proceed.
Perfect. So my name's Tom Daniels. I'm a civil engineer for TRC out of our Augusta, Maine office. With me is Mark Christopher.
I'm a wildlife biologist and I do permitting for TRC.
So I guess, generally to kind of orient you to the site, north is left on this sheet, all the solar panels face south for good sun exposure. We're proposing to use the existing paved driveway. I'm sure you're familiar with the area. There's an old paved driveway across from house number 208 on River Road. So we're gonna, rebuild that and improve it, and then gravel access roads are gonna extend to the various equipment pads. Each one of those darker black squares is like a small pad mount transformer, and then those all interconnect together and then directly inject into the distribution grid existing on River Road. Overall project area is about 19 acre limit of disturbance, including clearing and tree removal. And for the most part, not for the most part, we are meeting all of our setback requirements right now, and there is a little bit of wetland impact that we're permitting through Maine Department of Environmental Protection as well as Army Corps of Engineers. So this project will need is it PCN mark for Army Corps?
So the Corps, it's a category 2 pre-construction notice, and with DEP it's a tier 3 Natural Resource Protection Act permit.
And we've started consultation with those agencies and are working towards permitting with them.
Okay.
We had a pre-application meeting with each of the agencies and have done our consultation with them, with Fish and Wildlife Service and the Historic Commission, Natural Areas Program.
Yeah, and then looking up on the screen there, those green kind of hashed areas, those are the delineated wetlands, most of which are forested, some are low-growing shrub. And, off the property, and why we chose this section of the property, there are some streams with some more significant wetlands that need to be preserved. So the development is clustered into the best buildable area on these 3 parcels.
You must be talking about this up here.
Exactly. There's a little farm pond there, and then there's some streams. There's 2 perennial streams that drain the property. The one that you see there at the top, and then there's another one further to the northeast. It's not on that view somewhere.
Gotcha.
So given the amount of wetlands and the configuration of wetlands, it ultimately made sense for us to kind of concentrate the development on the south and westerly portions of the property along Route 15.
So, I've been through a few of these. I know you guys haven't. So, do you have questions?
Yeah, I guess the intent
No?
of this meeting for us is just to get some initial feedback on, our general approach here, understand maybe any concerns or local knowledge that would be helpful to kind of work into our final design before we permit. Things that are also interesting, we've done numerous of these throughout the state and the Northeast. The roads are going to be designed, and what we're showing is, sufficient for fire apparatus to enter and exit the facility.
Yeah. I haven't, but I will be having the fire department review it before our final meeting, and just see if they have any issues.
And in the past, when we make a formal application, we'll go through all the different general land use standards, and some of them don't apply, but the ones that do, we'll address them and
Yeah.
go through how our plans and whatever consultation we've done helps to address those particular land use standards. So they'll all be spelled out, one right after the other.
So some of the questions that I know the public always asks, they always want to know how long will the panels last, and what happens to them when they're done, and who pays for the deconstruction. I know that we've already discussed this, but if you could go over that with the board, and for the public that's watching, I think that'd be helpful.
Sure. So generally, the panels have a 25 to 35 year lifespan. That's kind of what they're trending right now. One of the great things about solar is, as panels are damaged, or if the production is kind of dropping and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, you can change out the solar panels. So it's not like an all or nothing. It can be kind of upgraded and worked on. After construction, another benefit of solar is they are decommissioned. Everything is removed. Everything that's goes into this is steel for the posts, aluminum and steel for the framing, and then the panels themselves are just a mixture of glass and kind of regular computer chips and electrical equipment. Those will also get recycled, and that usually all factors into the decommissioning plan. And it's normal that bears on the developer, so that's their responsibility to include provisions to decommission their site within this agreement.
So typically we do a decommissioning bond, and that kind of protects the town if some reason something happens to you guys, or project is half built and then stops for some reason or whatever. So that usually gives people a level of comfort knowing that there's that. We haven't discussed, maybe we did discuss, I can't remember if we talked about an amount yet.
I don't think we have.
So I know that two similar sized projects that I've done for other towns, we estimated the decommissioning to be around $225,000, something along those lines, and we did the bond for $300,000 to account for inflation over the 25 years. I don't know if that sounds ballpark what you've done in the past, if that's what we did with another company.
Yeah, it varies. The approach varies, and we can work that out with Ameresco to see what they're comfortable with. Other approaches we've done is that bond amount is revisited every so often.
You can do that. I think the reason, and it was, I guess they left it up to the selectmen in the other town, and the selectmen chose to do it that way, so there was less to think about and deal with, but yeah, you can do it that way. So that's not the...
Will this be visible from the road? Any of it?
Yeah, I think, reasonably it will be.
Mhm.
As we're showing, that land kind of slopes up from the road. I'm sure you're familiar with it. So there's so much you can do for screening. We are proposing some landscaping where some of the trees will be removed, but generally
this is probably the closest, and then over by the drive, right?
Yep, no, so we are gonna include some landscaping to provide some screening, but I think just based on some of the elevation, you'll see blips of it as you zip by.
What about the butters' houses?
And that's what we're being cautious of, you know, we're focusing our landscaping around, you know, some of the abutters where the properties work around. Yep.
And
And then there's one to the, the
over
north
here.
there.
And Drake, is it Drake's Lane is over here somewhere? Yeah,
That should be pretty well screened.
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of those abutter letters I sent out had to go to Drake's Lane because the
Yeah,
land
they-
abuts, but they won't really see it from their houses where
I don't think so, because you've got on the left side, you've got those panels, then you've got a wetland, then you've got some more uplands. I'm not sure of the distance, but
Yeah.
there's a pretty good tree cover.
So what is proposed through the wetlands, where you have the array going through the wetlands?
this
Yeah.
area here.
What would, I see the note that this stump removal and grading, what would happen in the wetland area?
If the wetland, in some parts of that, the wetland is forested, so the trees will get cleared, you know, the stumps will be removed and the area grubbed and graded, and then the panels go in those locations. And the DEP and the Corps consider that to be fill, to be a permanent impact. There's part of that wetland right where the center of those panels go, in kind of halfway in between, where the wetland's all herbaceous. It's a wet meadow, so there's no trees there. You don't have to pull stumps. So they should be able to just put the panels and the posts right in that wetland. And some of that is still considered an impact by the agencies, but it's not considered to be fill except for the posts themselves, the 3-4 inch diameter posts. So, and that was one of the things that helped make the site more economical, is we did have this wet meadow portion of this wetland that we felt like we could develop, and we wouldn't have to clear stumps or remove stumps and do grading. And that gave us the ability to concentrate the development to the south and to the west, instead of using some of the uplands further to the east and the north.
Do you have any sites of similar size in operation right now?
Yeah, I know Amoresco has multiple sites throughout the Northeast that are operating right now in this 5 megawatt range. And then TRC, we've done numerous in the state that are under construction, being built right now.
I understand the concept and of how solar works and everything, but is there, or would there be a temperature gain in that area with all that solar panel? With the houses, the abutters notice that, a warm day in July is now 15 degrees hotter than it used to be because of all of that.
I don't know.
No, I've never heard of anyone having those issues, in sites that we've designed and that have been operating for the last several years. One of the things about these panels, the way they're designed, is they, to be efficient, they eat up that sunlight and generate that power. You can put your hand on it and it's like, being on blacktop, it's not gonna burn you. It doesn't hurt animals or anything like that. There's very little glare.
I've seen people fry eggs on the blacktop, so.
Well, yeah, but yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I would think they would absorb the heat.
That's the goal.
May I ask a question?
Yes, that's what we're here for.
The fencing you're proposing, what type of fencing is it?
7-foot chain link fence, and that ties all to National Electric Code.
Would the neighbors be happy with that? If you were a neighbor, would you be happy with that?
I think we're making a good faith effort. The fencing is going to be on the inside of the landscaping, as it's being proposed, to try and help with that scenic view. Other projects we've done, we've used like a PVC coated, so it kind of blends in a little better. It's when we've done limited runs like that, those things could be explored. But
Do you leave a gap at the bottom for small animals and stuff to be able to get through? I know it's something that some of the other companies have said that.
it's been done before when there's a specific species or a corridor
Yeah.
on projects, like we've done ones with black racer snakes or Blanding's turtles, and that has been done, but it's not standard practice.
No.
these fixed? None of them are,
This is a
Moving.
fixed, yeah, this is a fixed tilt project.
what's the superstructure that you're mounting them on?
So the foundations for the site will be like ground auger, like ground screws, and then it's, all, steel purlins and framing. It looks similar, I don't know if, the racking system would be similar to the one that you have up the road for the treatment plant that's gonna be kind of a small array there. Very similar, two in portrait, these ones would be tilted a little flatter, but, that looked like it'd be driven post, and these would be just, screwed in ground auger, and that's mainly because of the subsurface conditions up there.
How much of this is on the old bark dump? Isn't that a major part of that?
I think the bark dump is over here, isn't it? Like, this is the landfill. I'm not a mill guy, so you tell me. Is that area the bark dump, or?
We need Ed.
Because here's your power line, and the solar's all
Yeah.
on this side.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think it is the same property.
I was just curious because I don't know how the anchorage would be
Oh, yeah.
in that filled area.
I think this is mostly undisturbed area, isn't it? It's
For the
all
most part.
like raw land.
There's a couple old dug wells out there, and then there's a little bit of access.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all native soil.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yep. That must be that little pond you were talking about.
Exactly, yeah.
So, so this is kind of where we're talking. This is the driveway he was mentioning that's there now. They're going to improve on. So,
Looks like the old gas station.
No, it was not, just the access point.
So those properties right there, rather than seeing woods and everything else, is now gonna see a chain link fence?
Yeah, with some landscape buffering, yeah.
And no way to block it so that they don't have to look at it? I mean, I'm just asking the question.
No,
because
and-
those questions will come up, as they're used to what they have, and now we're gonna change it. And I think we should at least ask these questions, to make sure the neighbors are being taken care of.
Right, and that's where the landscape screening comes into place, where, they plant, evergreens and balsam fir, whichever the landscape architect decides is appropriate to block that view, based on the growing conditions. And then over time, the trees will get taller and block their view.
I think that's what this is here.
Yeah.
But that's also something, Dick, that we can, we can put conditions about buffering and things like
Well,
that
that's what I was
into the.
thinking, is
that
that
we
making
can-
sure that we
We can talk
address
about that.
neighbors for this kind of project.
Yeah.
Is there any noise created?
No, very little. The only components that generate any sound would be the armed
Transformer
equipment that's.
packages, I would think.
Right. So, and that's gonna be similar to, I know when I was out at the site earlier, they're relatively quiet, any quieter than what the Route 15 is going, and, kind of similar noise to like an AC unit.
And we're not gonna hear any whistling if the wind is going through those solar panels?
No.
Just thought I'd ask.
No, not any more than probably what's going through the timber up there.
What are the dimensions of the footprint of this thing? I mean, how wide, with all the panels put together, I mean, is it 500 yards wide and 200 yards long, or what will it be?
It's quite a bit longer than that.
Yeah?
Yeah,
It's huge.
yeah, so, as you can see, the road is a couple thousand feet long, so, I don't know the dimensions off the top of my head, but the whole area is about 19 acres that it's built.
Okay.
They like to keep them under 20 acres so they can avoid this LOTA permit.
Well, but when we make it public and the public gets a view of this, all those adjoining owners are for sure going to have a lot of questions.
Well, maybe, but that's why I notified them all about this meeting, and I was really quite surprised I didn't get many questions. And hopefully they're watching tonight, and they have my number, it's supposed to be on the screen. If for some reason it's not, it's 735-6428, and you can call and ask questions, but, yeah, I haven't received many questions yet. I thought I would, even if they're not necessarily upset. People usually have some questions. Um,
How about security for the facility?
That's what the fence is for, so, 7-foot fence, it's monitored remotely. Again, if someone's gonna jump a fence and get in there, that's.
Well, yes, I'm just saying, is there gonna be cameras or anything else on the facility?
Cameras, no, I wouldn't imagine so.
Okay. Now, you're gonna have a building on the premise.
A building, no, just the equipment fence.
Okay, so, lawn care and that kind of stuff, maintenance, making it pretty. How do we do that?
So typically it's pretty set it and forget it with routine maintenance, so mowing twice per year, and then, routine checkup and maintenance on the facility itself throughout operations. They're pretty hands-off, they don't generate a lot of traffic at all. Once they're built, you're looking at a maintenance truck going in, as needed to check on things.
Well, that raises another question for me. Ticks, things like that, is there an increase at all?
From, that
Well,
I
you're
don't-
gonna create a field here,
Yeah.
and darkness, so I'm just asking the questions, is there any kind of side effect from doing that? Not that there should be, but I have to ask.
Yeah, really, I don't know. Since it gets mowed, it's gonna kinda keep the ticks back. Like, if you let the field go and mowed it, let's say, every 2 or 3 years, infrequent, you allow the vegetation to get up
Mm-hmm.
to the point where it's above your waist or so, like a transmission line, then I would say, yeah, you're probably gonna increase the amount. You could increase the amount of ticks. But with it being mowed twice a year, the grass is short, that's not really tick habitat.
And the other thing to keep in mind
I'm an
is,
expert, I am an expert on picking up ticks, I'm good at that.
but it is fenced, so there's really, it's not like, the deer will end up starting to move around the facility. There's nothing that's
You
gonna
know,
be
I'm
in
worried
the.
about the deer so much as I am just what to breed in there.
Right, but there would be nothing to transmit it, I guess. Ticks need a host to live their life and do their thing, so.
Year round.
So you said maintenance occasionally, so this will not increase any, this won't produce or create any jobs here in Bucksport.
As, construction will be the number one, the job maker here. Other than that, it's not a manned facility, so there's.
How long would construction last typically?
4 to 6 months for a project of this size.
So, and then you keep it plowed in case they need to get in there, but also for fire.
Yeah, and as far as monitoring too, I remember remote monitoring, so it's all set up with like a SCADA system. So, if there's an alarm, they know, oh, this piece of equipment's not acting right, and they would send their maintenance person there to check it out.
And why did you find this piece of land so attractive?
Rob, can you speak at all to the site selection and why Amoresco picked the site?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. We have a relationship with AIM Recycling, and when they acquired the they acquired all those properties that you guys know of over there. And they acquired the peaker plant and the landfill, and the riverfront area that Whole Oceans is looking at. They had this parcel. It's approximately 40 acres, these 3 parcels, and
concerns or things that you'd like to see before they come back to us?
You mentioned, it'll have a monitoring system should something go wrong. Will that generate noise? Will there be an audible alarm that a neighbor's gonna hear at 2 in the morning and the maintenance truck doesn't show up until, 8 o'clock in the morning?
No, it's all, by SCADA, like a pump station would be, so that, it alarms to somebody remote that, I don't know, the temperature is a little hotter on the transformer, or, they're not getting the efficiency they want, so something needs to get checked out, or, if the tree fell down, and, things like that, they can tell, similar to how CMP, monitors their systems.
Is there access all around around the entire array inside the fence, for a vehicle?
Yes, for like pickup truck size vehicle, yes. So there's a minimum of 16 feet between the edge of the panels and the fence.
And the benefit to the town.
Well, I can't speak completely to the town's perception, but, there is, as I mentioned, there's the, fee in lieu of taxes, there's, the use of the property, and then, the potential for, purchasing of power, so. It's all power that's gonna go into the local grid and be able to get signed up for, you're seeing that in a lot of other projects in the state, the community solar program or whatnot, where there's, virtual metering and power purchase agreements.
I know the RSU's looking at it.
Yeah, this is Rob. We have budgeted about, what we think is that we're probably gonna, pay about $500,000 over the term. I'm looking at the pro forma now. This is the great thing about being remote, is I can look at this real time, and present. But we're budgeting about $3,000 a megawatt AC, which is, I think, is what the state is going to require. And this is about a 4.5 AC project, so that translates into annual payment, about $13,000 with a 2% escalator as well. So over the term, we're looking at probably about $500,000. I have had some discussions initially with Jim Boothby over at the RSU. He's got about 700,000 kilowatt hours that he's looking to offset, and we offered him a payment, that selling him some of the credits for about 9.5 cents fixed, which is basically the going market in Maine, which would result in an additional, I believe off the top of my head, it was close to $500,000 over the term.
take a, real good effort to address the basic standards, general standards, and, as completely as we can. And if there's thoughts or concerns, please throw them at us.
Yep.
Make our application more effective.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we would like to get definitely fire department feedback too, so.
Yep.
Will you send that to them, or should we reach out?
Yeah, I can have them review that, if that's gonna be kind of the final plan.
Yeah, like to at least have them look at the road and make sure,
Sure.
I don't know what Bucksport has for equipment, we're conservative in what we use to size the turnarounds, we follow NFPA, but again, there's always specifics to each department, so.
Sure.
One more, sure, if it's okay. Your transformer stations for collecting, where do they connect in?
Yeah, it's hard to see at this scale, so they almost follow the road, and you can see it's gonna be an underground line.
This one here?
Yeah, that cuts through the array. Yep. And then each one kind of, for lack of a better term, daisy chains together
Right.
before they transition to overhead. And then
Where do they transition overhead? That's exactly where I wanted to go.
yeah, down by the intersection,
Sorry, I'm kind of slow here.
kind of where you can
Over
kind of
there,
see
and
right
then it-
behind
oh,
that.
right
clump.
here?
Yep. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 poles, and then it goes into the existing.
Okay, can you pull up from that now, or, so we can see the whole thing? I wanna see where those wires connecting going across.
Yeah, they just come right into that. There's an existing pole right there, kind of where the driveway.
This is the road, so there's a
Yeah.
pole.
Yep.
And the reason there's 5 poles is CMP has specific requirements for their interconnection. So it's like a cluster farm where it's got, a recloser, and then CMP can shut it off on their end. So
So there's no real abutter right there that we can
Nope.
worry about?
So this is underground until you get to those 5
Right.
poles, and then it connects to this pole right here.
Yep.
So there's very little overhead stuff.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
But I think the buffering is definitely something we wanna talk about. The bond is something, or however we're gonna do that, is something we wanna talk about, and, talk with Sue about too, probably, and, were there any other big things we wanted to address?
What's your schedule as far as, what are you aiming at, start construction?
as Rob mentioned, construction would ideally be able to start later this year once we go through the state permitting process. So the longest lead time is going to be Maine DP's permit, which is a 90-day.
Yeah, it's probably more like 4 months.
So
Has that started yet?
Yeah, we're close.
yeah, we're close. Once we feel like we have the general approach and the plan that we're going to put forward, we'll submit that to DEP, almost dual path with the town.
And we got a lot of good feedback from both the DEP and the Corps in our pre-app with them, so, we think we've covered our bases in terms of addressing the normal Natural Resource Protection Act types of issues, so I think our permit will get issued in a timely manner.
Okay. It appears that there's no questions from the public.
The public just wants to get here in person so they can jump up and down and scream, right?
I wish we could have them here in person, but that's not yet. Hopefully soon.
Absolutely.
All right.
The other thing I'll point out is we had an Alta level boundary survey done by Pliskin Day. That was done earlier this year, late 2020. So the boundaries are firmed up. We're very confident in where those are. They're accurately located.
Okay.
Yeah, are there any issues and things with the zoning? We talked about contract zoning and such. And obviously that's something that we need to talk
Right.
about. We need to see if there are any particular issues we need to address in our application.
Well, that's the next item on the agenda. So, whoop, here's a call. If you watch, it won't be about us. Hello, this is Luke. I can hear you, yes? Yep. It's, his question is, are you going to have buffering on Drake's Lane along the side of the road
I think that.
behind the houses?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of natural buffering there that we're not gonna need to plant, because you've got a pretty heavily forested upland and wetland area between those panels on the, I guess on the left side of the project towards that boundary.
Okay. I,
About 400 feet of woods that are
can
gonna
you
remain.
point to where the, on Drake's Lane, the pond behind your house? Let me go to Google Earth because,
Is there a name on the?
It's,
oh, you mean that little pond out there, okay. Do you know about where that's coming in relation to Drake's Lane on here? I know it's difficult,
Yeah,
but
if you zoom out a little bit.
zoom out, yeah. Too much?
No, you're there, so. You can almost see the change in the, you can almost see the change in the woods, kinda northwest of the pond.
Hold on a minute. I know there's a delay between what you're seeing and him talking, but he's showing about where the line is.
It's about 300 to 400 feet.
About 300 to 400 feet from Drake's Lane. So there will be trees there, and we can certainly put, well, we might be able to put some type of a condition on about buffering if there is an issue down the road. But it doesn't look like that's going to be an issue from over there. It doesn't look like you'll be seeing them. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think Tom's right. I think there's at least 300 or 400 feet between the backyards of those houses.
Yep.
And the nearest development portion of the project. Let's see.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Comes up into here.
Right.
Let's see.
No, they're not
This
going.
distance from
They're not going right to the property line, no. So, okay.
that pond that they're talking about.
All right. I'm going to hang up, and if you have more questions, just feel free to let me know, and I'll relay them to them, and we'll discuss it off camera. Okay? No problem. Take care.
I thought the call was gonna be about your remarks.
So, yeah, his major concern was about buffering and whether he was going to be looking right at panels from his house, which is on Drake's Lane here. It's one of these. It looks like it's hard to tell on this Google Earth whether those trees are thick or if there's gaps in between them. I'd have to drive out there and take a look, I guess. But
Yeah, being out there, it's pretty well wooded, and I think just based on space, we're doing our best to keep our development clustered.
So these things are 12 feet tall. So odds are they're not going to be able to see those from their house then.
Not if the trees are 50, 60 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's gonna be extremely good screening, and the project, the actual development portion of the project only goes up about maybe 3 or 4 houses on Drake's Lane. It doesn't go, I
Oh,
don't
out
think it
here.
goes, see where that, right there, that's a stream where those trees are
Oh,
between
this?
those houses.
Yep.
It doesn't go past that,
Oh, okay.
cause that stream is, project comes up to in here.
Yeah, this is the line of concern.
Right.
Here, so that stream, we kind of stuck on the side of it.
I see.
Exactly, yeah. So you're.
Okay, that'll make him happy. I kind of see the stream now.
Yep.
Yeah. Doesn't really look like a stream until you say that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
The other thing we can do when we submit the full package is, have the aerial image underneath the layout on a plan, so you can reference where things are. That's no problem.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So if there's nothing else on that, the next item on the agenda would be the zoning change. These 3 lots are Route 15 residential commercial, and the abutting lots, the CMP power line and over is industrial. This would be considered power generation facility, and power generation facility is only allowed in industrial zone. So what we have been asked to do is to change the zoning of these 3 lots to industrial, basically bump the line over to incorporate these 3 lots.
What's your take on it, Luke?
I don't see any reason why not. Honestly, the reason that this is only zoned for industrial is because when power generation was put in the ordinance, obviously I wasn't here, but my guess is that they were mainly thinking about the power plant.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't thinking about something like this. And it was our intention to have a new ordinance put in place for solar, and then COVID hit and it never happened, and then this kind of got sprung on us. So here we are. The intention was, when we introduced the solar ordinance, to make it allowable in these other zones. And this would have been one of the zones where it was allowed anyways. So essentially, we're not really, if we did that, it's no different than doing this, just changing this to industrial to, it's kind of a workaround. The other option is a contract zone, but that's a more difficult process. It's doable.
How difficult?
Huh?
How difficult?
Not terribly. I mean, you have to advertise it and have hearings, and it has to be approved by the council, and there's just a bunch of steps to it, and it takes time. But the other thing too is, I'm not a big fan of having contract zones here, there, and everywhere, making a habit of it. I know we did it for my cause for Silver Lake Estates, but I don't know of any others in the recent history, anyways, in the area, and I just assume keep it that way. But
Well, this would still have to go before the town council for approval, correct?
I believe if we recommend doing it, then they would have to approve it. But
I understand, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
make sure I understand
Yep.
the flow.
any other feelings on that?
So from an administrative process, how would that work? If we do a revised zoning, and we expand industrial to these lots, does that have to get approved before we come to the planning board with an application? Or can it be run simultaneously?
Well, I'm trying to do it simultaneously, but I can't. It's not up to me.
Right, I understand.
So, if we have to hold off, then we have to hold off. But yeah, we can't approve the project if the zoning isn't
Right.
in place.
Well,
So,
in order to change the zoning, does that have to go to the approval of the town council? And it's one thing to be telling these folks here, we're planning on, the possibility you're gonna have a solar array right behind your house, but it's another thing, it's the cart, it's the house before the cart, but the zone change is another thing that they may not. There are 2 things that they may be dissatisfied with. So I think we need to deal with the zone change first and let people have their say, and then deal with this.
And under the process, do you want that it changes to industrial, which means anything can go in there if these folks didn't move forward?
in theory, yeah.
did a contract zone to something here in downtown, and we kinda got taken to the woodshed, didn't we, by the state?
It's state.
They wrote a letter saying that we used it improperly or something, and, wasn't that for one of the properties down the street here? That might have been just DEP, that,
I don't recall.
Right.
it was before you and Steve
Mhm.
joined. It was
Yeah.
something to do with one of the properties down the street, the woman couldn't
Lighthouse
rent her
Arts.
house, the businesses were all closing, and she couldn't rent it residentially, and so we tried to help her out and do a contract zone change, and it got, the state
Yeah,
said
within
no,
the,
and wrote a letter and scolded us.
did we pay attention to the scolding?
I think we
Totally.
did, I don't think we've done it since. Like, I don't even think, we did a contract zone change for the Haas development?
You did, yeah. Because mobile home parks weren't allowed out there.
No, we can't really do much tonight anyway, so.
Okay.
Well, because he hasn't been approved yet. so-
Correct. You can't
And we
vote.
only have 3 out of 7, so.
Correct. Okay.
Can we address that at our next regular monthly meeting? Does that give you time to get a hold of the abutters and at least us get started on that?
Just not about solar, just about the zoning. Yes. I think if I send letters out tomorrow, there's enough time before April. April 6th would be the next meeting, so yeah, technically, as long as I get them out by the 23rd, so yeah, there's time.
I'm just thinking out loud, Luke, that if I was in these folks' shoes, I certainly want to know I had my ducks in order before I started to move on to the next part, because if I can't get my permits, you can't get a permit change, I'm dead in the water.
I understand.
So do you see where I'm coming from? I think probably that should be addressed before.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, AIM chose to keep this a secret from everybody until about a month or 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, I guess now that we're aware of it, we can get started on it. Correct, Brian?
Yeah.
okay.
I'm sure these folks would like to have either a yay or a nay before too much further in their process.
Yeah, what's our role in terms of the zoning or rezoning application? Is that something that you guys take the lead on, or do we have to file a request or something?
It's all us.
Oh, you guys, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. I'll dig into that tomorrow and get it on the agenda for the April meeting.
And hopefully we could get a quorum, so maybe if things worked out that night, we could
Yep.
address it that night.
We should. He's supposed to be appointed on the 26th. And hopefully Steve can be here. Dave was supposed to be here. Not sure. And then Steve Fight was out of town. So. Okay.
and the two Steves should be here, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, there's another call. Hello, this is Luke. Yep. It depends which property it is.
Which camera were we supposed to be smiling at anyway?
The corner of Drake's Lane and Route
Must be
1,
one
you're
up,
going to
probably
be
the one up at the clock.
quite a ways away from it, aren't you, down there? He's down here in this corner.
I don't know which I have, which is my best side.
Yeah.
They're all good, George.
They're looking at the map.
Should I put my hat back on?
They're all good.
My head's a little shiny.
Yeah.
We only go
Yeah.
2 lots over, so behind that second house with the white garage to the northwest, kinda up from there, it is
Okay.
where it kinda juts out.
Yeah, it looks like you'd have quite a buffer between you and there. Yeah, but if you'd like to come into the town office, we can look at that on the maps in person and go over it in
We
more
could get-
detail.
That boundary on that, overlaid on that,
Yep,
as soon
Yep.
as possible, that'd be great.
no problem.
You can
Take
get it
care.
so you can open it in Google Earth and
Yeah.
and have it on there, that's no problem.
I think that might have an answer to a lot of people's questions, just by simply having that.
I agree. I think
Good
that would
idea.
help- That would help tremendously.
Yeah, we can do that. That's no
Having
problem.
what? Missed that, sorry, I was on the phone.
If we had that boundary overlaid on that photo right there,
Oh, yeah, that would be helpful.
instead, so we're not counting houses and then
Yeah.
zooming in looking for that stream, cause before that stream was mentioned, I thought most of that wedge was gonna be that array. And because on the topographical map, where it shows the lot boundary,
Right, that makes it look like the whole
it looks
lot.
like you're right
Yeah.
behind these people's houses, so
Yeah.
the line is right behind their house, but
Yeah, it's almost, on this sheet, you can see the full wedge, and then this little line that's LOD,
Yep.
that's kind of the tree clearing limits, and then obviously the array itself is set out as well. Well, yeah, we can certainly get it, so you can pull it up in Google Earth, that's no problem.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
maybe would it be possible for the town to look into a conference room phone
Oh,
for in here, so if we never, Lord knows when we're gonna have public, so if people could call during the meeting, their question could be heard and
yeah, I can look into that.
just a thought. I don't wanna spend the town's money, I don't want my taxes to go up, but
Okay.
anything else?
Not for me, you're the
Okay.
chair.
Anything else?
I'm all set.
I'm all set.
We praying?
I need all the help I can get. So I guess we will adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
We can't vote on it, we don't have enough people.
Yeah. So we
We don't have
open the
the meeting.
meeting, it just, yeah, we can't even, we don't even have a quorum to,
But
probably
you're,
not even a legitimate meeting. to
I
be
guess,
honest with
Mr.
you.
Chairman, that's your next move then.
We're adjourned.
Game over.